Hey, welcome in. I'm Rita, and this is The Story I'm Telling Myself, a podcast about uncovering the beliefs that hold us back and rewriting them with truth, courage, and clarity. If you've ever felt like you're standing in your own way, you are not alone. Let's get into it. Happy Sunday, everyone. That is a weird thing for me to say. I don't usually come live on a Sunday, but this is a very special edition of the story I'm telling myself. And when Liz and I talked about this, I really felt like a weekend was a good time for us to have this conversation so that more people could participate and not have to worry about their obligations at work. So if you were with us live, thanks for being here. We're so glad that you joined us. And come in the comments, say hello. Let us know that you're here. And oh, Mark is here. Hey, Mark. Great to see you. Glad you're here. I appreciate you being loyal to the show. So we are going to talk about something very important today, and that is what happens when you lose your job. For many of us, it's almost our worst nightmare to suddenly find ourselves unemployed. And my friend Liz is being she is just being so kind to come and share her story with all of us. And hopefully you are going to know better how to support people around you or navigate this yourself if you find yourself in this situation. So, oh, hey, Ruth, I'm so glad you're here. Thanks for joining us. So, before we can get too much further along, though, you all need to meet Liz. So, Liz, please introduce yourself to everyone.
Hello, and yes, happy Sunday. It's absolutely beautiful. And I really appreciate you bringing me on. It'll be a good talk about how to kind of navigate things. But I have been at Glasser's Collision Centers for the last 6 years, and previously in a nonprofit and other advertising businesses. And we'll dive in a little bit more about the Glasser situation, but yeah, I'm very happy to be on and join the conversation, and hope some people have some questions and figure out, all this new world of being out of a job. So I don't know if you want me to dive into that or not, but we can.
In just a second, let me just tell everybody. So I've put Liz's LinkedIn contact information. So Liz Dehart, Dehart. She is located in Louisville, Kentucky, where I am. And that's how we first got to know one another. We were in a women's networking group together. And so Liz is on the market. She's out there looking for her next marketing assignment. So listen, listeners, we're going to surround her with love. Not only are we going to hear her story, but we're going to connect her up with opportunities and other people. So just keep that in the back of your mind that Liz is a marketing expert, and she is looking for her next home, and we can maybe be a part of helping make that happen. So before I let Liz tell her story, I just want to tell you guys a little of the setup of why I had this sudden epiphany at a chamber event. So Liz and I were at the same chamber event. In fact, I arrived before she did, and we were there to celebrate another female from this women's networking group that we were a part of, who was celebrating the anniversary of her business. And when Liz walked in the door, all of her chamber friends were speaking out, and they were saying, "How are you? And we're so mad at your employer that they've done this to you." And what struck me in the moment was Liz's response. Liz, do you remember that moment and what you said to everybody?
Yes.
Tell
Yeah.
everyone.
Yeah. It was, it literally is the week after I had found out that the business had sold. And so I knew that I needed to get out, because that's always a weird thing. You're not sure how to approach the new world when you're especially a business event, when you're not employed. And so that was awkward. But I was coming into a friendly environment, celebrating, as you said, another friend and her business. So walk in the door, and you're right. Everybody was like, "Hey, how you doing?" And we're so sorry, and that's so crazy, and I can't believe they didn't give you any notice, and blah blah. And I thought, I still have friends there and people I worked with for the last 6 years, and the owners of the company. I had a beautiful experience of being at the business. And so, even though with the buyout, we had quite a few people, almost really everyone had kept their job. Two of us did not. But, I look at it and it's like, these are people I work with. I still want to support them. I still want to make sure that they have business coming in, and make sure that they're okay. And so I wanted to make sure that I kept that, because that was important to me. It was still a business that I put everything into to help build and make sure that business was coming in the door. And you also just don't want to stomp on it. So, and
And this is important, but there are people that would. So I just got to pause and call this out. I mean, this moment stood out to me, and I struck up this conversation with Liz, and I was like, you really got to come on the podcast and we've got to talk about this, because there are a lot of people losing their jobs right now. It's unfortunate. You don't even have to work from the federal government to be somebody losing your job. We're seeing tons of retail closings. The economy is just not good, and the job market is not feeling so great right now either. So there are a lot of people in this situation, and there are probably a lot of you who are concerned about finding yourself in this situation. And it just really struck me that you could have said, burn it to the ground. There are a lot of people in situations like this that are like, screw them. They're not doing anything for me. Burn it to the ground. And instead, you were thinking about these colleagues that just a week and a half before you were working side by side and caring deeply about them, and that you didn't walk away from that caring. And I think that says more about your character, Liz, than anything else could. In the moment, it just really struck me, because I know I have spent a lot more time listening to people say, burn it to the ground.
Yeah. And, it's funny because I appreciated our conversation about it, because I never really thought of it any more than all these people that I worked with are there. Even the people that, the Glasser family and selling the business, I don't fault them. And I, happy for them to, be able to have a different, adventure ahead. And so I didn't really think about my approach to it until we started talking about it. And it really, I guess that's also how trying to move forward, because that's also now we've got to move forward. And how do we do that? And nobody wants to, in an interview or, really in just inquiring, nobody wants to listen to somebody who's going, rah, rah, rah. You want to, because at that moment you're talking about moving forward. And
yes,
that is definitely my approach of how to make things happen, be positive, not get in my head, because that's another thing we are really good at, is that when things are astray, gosh, all of a sudden all the voices come out, and you want to make sure that those voices are encouraging you, because you do have people around like you and other people that were at that event. And other things that I've attended is that, they're very encouraging, and you'll find your next adventure, when one door closes, another opens, and it's true. So I look at this as what I'm going to do moving forward. And when I go in to have an interview or talk about opportunities, I want to have that, that spirit,
Yeah.
because it helps. It just is. And because you're also sitting up a little straighter when you feel that way.
Yes.
And you always, because if somebody's talking to you about, and you're all negative, you're kind of slumped over. So you want to be up. And probably one of the things that I talk to my kids about is when you go to do something about roaring, where
Yes.
do the whole thing, and roar at yourself in the mirror, or however it is. And I guess that's sort of my roar, is to make sure that I lead in the positive way of where I was. That is the story. There was nothing I could do about it, and I need to move forward in that way.
Well, and it calls out a couple of things. One of the things that it calls out is what a tremendous job the Glasser family did cultivating a good culture.
Mm.
Because if you did not have the level of connection, that sense of team and family that you had with not just the owners, but everyone that you worked with inside of the business, it might be a little harder to summon as much acceptance. I'm not even going to say forgiveness, because like you said, like you're not even sure there's anything to ask for forgiveness for. It's just really about acceptance. It's a business decision. It wasn't meant to be personal. It was unfortunate that your position is one that didn't have a home in the new world. But yeah, I mean, I think that it would be interesting for you to talk a little bit about when you think about your time there, what are some of the things that you remember about your experience working with all those folks that really reminds you, no, this was a really good time in my life. Like, I'm just not going to listen to the negative story in my head, because it's not going to steal the joy of it, because it was a joyful time.
And you're right about the, sort of what the culture was at Glassers, and I never thought about it and how that did move you forward in your job in general, but even now, because it was the core values and what the Glassers built over 39 years was really incredible. And with the number of different shops that they had, and even though there were different little mini cultures inside each of those shops, they all came together for the same thing. And because of that, it really was a great environment, a very family oriented. It was a family that ran the business, and you very much had that hardworking people. And so that also allows you to, like, they're working hard. I want to work hard. I want to be part of that. And I think that it does bring everything together, between how you felt at work, the people that we were, had in the business, their mindset. We had this thing called Orbed, and it's about having an attitude that's above the line. And if you're below the line, then you might get a little elbow from your next door friend at work that says you need to be back above the line, and we would tease about those things. But the truth is that we needed to bring each other up if things, because things aren't always perfect. But they built that. Glassers did a phenomenal job of building that within their company. And through that, I loved what I was doing. It was great being out with the public and talking to the public about, whether chamber events or, if I was at a golf scramble and people would come up, that you felt really good about the business. And so you're right. It does then carry forward, again, other things you're thankful for, of the experience and what I had and people that I was able to talk to. And, So it was, and actually, I'll try to do this really short. So the morning that, unbeknownst to us, that we were going to have a change in ownership, we had a little chamber event that was at our shop in Shepherdsville, and it was well attended. We had lots of people there, and somebody was asking about the core values, and we had big banners in each of the shops. And I like to set up a way to show all the people that worked in the business, how many years they had been there, because I think that's really cool, because there was, really good tenure at Glassers. So I was explaining how we got there and what we did. And, and I have to say, I killed it. It was just like, I felt it. And I mean, I was just all over it, and I was so happy. And when I ran into a couple people after that event, and they were talking about, oh, it was so great. But then it changed. Like, it did. But it was still, I, always remember that as we'll say official, it wasn't my last day, but my last sort of full push on who Glassers were. The business, the family, the culture, is that I loved being part of that. And so hopefully I'll move that forward to somebody else's business.
Well, and not hopefully, girl. Not hopefully, definitely. I don't want. No, honestly, like, don't downplay it. So many people never get to have that experience. It is such a strength that you bring into the next chapter of your career because of having had that experience and knowing what's possible and knowing the relational what's the word I'm looking for? I'm trying to leave it to something better than culture, but there is this relationship building piece that happens, right? You just don't hang the stuff on the wall. That was insufficient to
Right.
enable you guys to have that. It's nice to have those visible things around you, but that wasn't what created it, right? You said it.
Right.
It was about the fact that people held each other to a standard that
Yeah.
you talked about that it was a normal part of how you operated, and that there was an experience that was going to be the Glasser experience for the customer and for the workers. And this is what culture is really all about. And so many people never really understand that. So that is a superpower you get to take from this with you.
Yes, and again, thank you. Sometimes we miss the obvious, and but yes, and it was very interesting, because I think that the whole idea of having a culture and how you build that is so important, because it is, and really following through with it, because it's great to go through all the exercises, but if you don't do anything about it, there's a company that just recently changed their logo, and there's lots of discussion about, when you change your logo, what goes into it, and the art directors like to give you all their deep thoughts and how it got there, but really, what does it mean? And so this company moved it forward beyond just the logo, and what are all the things, and gave each person in the business talking points and how to talk about the business, the logo change, what that means. And I think that listening to them talk about that and then also what Glassers did, I think is really important across the board for any business. And it doesn't matter whether you're a big business, a small business. It's important, because if you don't believe in what is going on in the business and believe in the culture, then you're in the wrong place. But the company has to set that up first, and be able to carry that forward and talk about it. And I think it's really important, because you're right, with the Glassers, it's how they treated customers, their employees. And so I think it's important as a business to do that, because you can always go back to your core values, and make sure you're keeping on track, and helping your business, because things can be crazy overwhelming. And when you go back to that and carry that forward with everybody, I think it's a good way to reset. Just like ourselves, sometimes we need a break, like go out and walk the dogs, clear your mind. But it's in a business, being able to look back and say, why are we here? Why are we working so hard? And knowing that you are doing it for a reason. So any small business, large business should make sure that they're doing that if they're not.
So I have to imagine, and I'm sure the listeners are asking the same question. You got to have moments when you want to sit in your victimhood around this.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
And that's normal. I think that's humaning. So how long do you allow yourself to be there, and how do you get yourself back out of those moments when they come?
The time, how long do you do that? Ooh.
I mean, is it like a fleeting thought in your head, or do you give yourself like a certain amount of time to just, like go through all of your frustration, anxiety, all of those things? Or
I think that, because you do have to process it. And for me, how long did I do that? I think because I could rationalize very quickly of where things are, even though it sucked, that I didn't have that job, is that I still felt good about where I was. And I think also the amount of people that have reached out pushed me forward very quickly. So if you know someone that's lost their job, make sure that you acknowledge that with them and cheer them on, because it's so needed. And I think that part of it does help move forward quicker, because it gives you a little jolt. I know I've got somebody behind me. So I think that that's important, to support someone who has lost their job, and ask them, or ask other people, send me your resume, do whatever, to help that person, whether you know them through business or them personally, to keep an eye out for them for other opportunities. I think it's really important. And then when I do get down, I go to the garden. And
know what you need for restoration, like what restores your breath and your soul, and lean into those things, right?
That's exactly. I've got a friend who, she doesn't live in Louisville, but she is in the same situation. And so that's also great, because we commiserate and suggest and cheer each other on, and, help each other with, I've got an interview tomorrow. What, all right, let's talk about it. But we, both said that, golly, what if it wasn't spring, where we're out in the garden all the time, helping our mental state? So the garden is my place to help me center and get my feet, hands, everything, get dirty, is where I make things, clear things out.
Yes. Well, I mean, there's a lot of stuff to support the idea of grounding as a practice, and making sure that you are touching earth, like true earth, and allowing that centering to happen. So I think it's really important what you're saying, and what I would add to is, you don't have to know a job opening. You can introduce, if you know people that are in the situation like Liz is in, just make introductions to other people that might, it's all about expanding. I'm going to age myself, but I always loved, when I was a kid, that Prel commercial where it started with one box. She used Prel and she told someone, and they told somebody, and you see the exponential growth, right? The viral marketing idea. It's the same thing. We can do that. We have the power to do that for people in job searches, just simply by making introductions, because you just never know what's going to lead to what.
It's so true. And that also keeps you sort of encouraged, because when you're talking to people, and, the next person, actually, when I started out after college, my dad gave me this advice, and he said, go talk to so-and-so. tell them you're not looking for a job for them. Just tell them you want to talk to them because they might know somebody. And it's funny how a few years later, that practice, is being brought back out and talking with people, because it's also a lot more fun to do that and talk to people about what you're looking for, because they get to know you. So yes, if there's anybody that you can introduce me to, send them on. And because it's better to have a conversation. And unfortunately, the way the job process is, and AI and things like that is, you put in a bunch of applications, you don't hear anything from them for 3 weeks. There was one company, it was a while ago, but it was like 3 months before I got something back that said, so sorry, but you're not. I'm like, fine, because I already have a job. But it's nice. The connection is nice. Human connection, we all know, is the best.
So even though you are moving forward with grace and with gratitude in this process, what I hear from a lot of people in this type of market, is that it just gets difficult at times, when people are checking in and you're saying nothing yet, nothing yet, nothing yet. And it might be a little bit too early for you, but is there any other guidance as somebody in this process, in this moment, that you could share with me and with our listeners about what's helpful, what's not helpful to say to the job seeker, to the person in your seat?
It's hard because you're right. People want to ask, did you hear anything? And no. But I think that just checking in, it's anything when somebody goes through something in life, just the check in, just, hey, I'm just checking on you, see how it's going. That's probably the best thing to say to somebody. Is to just say, just checking in on you. How's it going? Anything I can, do for you. Those kinds of things I think are nice, because it does sort of, oh, they're paying attention. I better, better keep on it. And just the constant, the best is really just saying, I talked to so-and-so, keeping your name out there for you. Again, another person that, through networking, you feel like you're in such a weird space. And so I went to a networking event, and this guy's, he's like, Liz, it's okay. It's okay. Tell them, he's like, it's okay. Tell them what you need. They're here for you. So, because it was really my first one where I came out and said, Liz Dehart, formerly of Glassers Collision Centers. And with that, everybody was like, oh, check so-and-so. Here's my business card. And, so just encouragement, just, the introduction, all those things are the best. And just checking in, I think, is okay. If you ask how the job is and, they kind of are like, well, I didn't get it. It's okay. It'll, and that's what I've gotten a lot of. And it's been great. It's been good.
It's as a speaker, I've explained this to conference organizers before, because some of them never follow up with you. And it's actually a lot of work. It's just like submitting a job application to submit to speak at a conference. There's a lot of work that because I don't just have a list. I actually go research the conference. I understand what the theme is. I actually put a lot of effort into it. And so it is like a job application over and over and over again for conference speaking. And I've said to some of those organizers that, when they follow up, like, thank you for following up and letting me know that I wasn't selected. I put a lot of effort into that, and it's hard when you don't hear anything. And so I really do understand where job seekers are in that process of just no follow up, getting rejected, all of those things. And it can, it can do a lot of harm to your resilience and your endurance for the journey if you allow it to. I've tried to adopt another speaker friend of mine, shout out to Precious Williams. She says no means next, right? And so the faster you get the no, the more, like you said, like it's, when somebody's stringing you along, it's like I've just moved on. Like I'm just not even waiting around for you anymore. I'm moving on. It's like when you dated back in the day, right? It's like I'm not going to play these silly games. And so the faster you get no's, it's just like, okay, that's not the one for me. Let's keep moving. Really being able to put your attention to what's the possibility versus spending a lot of time looking in the rear view mirror
Right.
at,
No,
at what's already gone by.
I tell you, the whole thing, especially if you are emailing with someone at a company, not, because okay, so whatever, in the whole put it out there into the cyberspace. But if you're emailing with someone, it is very, very hard when you are waiting and you send a follow-up, hey, thanks a lot, the meeting was great, I really appreciate your time, and nothing. And because I would rather a note come back, an email that comes back says, so sorry, you're not the person. I would rather have that than nothing.
Right.
Because even though, to your point, you need to move on, but you still, because you may have felt really good about the conversation and whether it was on the phone or whether it was via Zoom, whatever it was, you may feel really good. So then you're encouraged, and you might not do the next application because you're thinking that went really well. But you just want to know, and it doesn't take that much time. It really doesn't. And at that point, you're also narrowed down to, a smaller number of people if you are emailing with someone. So
Right.
No.
Yeah. So if you're a hiring manager out there, it's a pass. It's a pass. Anything is better than nothing.
Yeah. Just
Anything
send a
is
stop
better than
sign
nothing.
emoji. I'm okay. At least I know, because that's part of it. At least I know. But yeah, it is. That's probably the most difficult. It isn't even the no from an interview. Sorry, we found somebody else. It's the ones that you're excited about, you've had a conversation with, and then they just ghost you. Is that those are the ones that sort of, make you feel like, what happened? I thought we had a good conversation. Those are probably hurt more than just a flat out no after you've gone through an interview process.
Well, it's close to time to wrap up. And before we do, I just want to add, from a psychological point of view, I just want to add a little education piece here for everyone listening. Resilience is so incredibly important when you find yourself thrown into a transition or a change that you did not choose, like Liz is describing. When you stay focused on your anger, your hurt, your resentment, whatever your negative story is about being a victim of those circumstances, you are actually, it's like draining your battery. Think of resilience in your body like a battery. And so you can either use the charge of the battery to work on what's in the future, or you can use up the battery, just spinning out over here on all of your hurt and your resentment and your anxiety. And it's like anything else in your life. Why would you give more attention to something that is not constructive for you? Because it's a business decision. It's really not a personal decision about you. And don't let your unreliable narrator inside of your head convince you that it somehow is about you. And I think that's the other really important thing about Liz's story that I was taking away in the conversation that we had at the chamber about this, that I wanted to share with you, is it's just so wise of her to recognize. And I remember, Liz, you said to me, I've been on the other side of this. I've been through the growth of Glassers, and I've seen us take over other shops, and I've been on the other side of this thing. So I know that this isn't personal, and it's not. It's not. And it's so easy for your ego to feel bruised and want to make it about you personally. And if you can channel this conversation and remember and just tell your ego, no, it's not. We're good. It's not about us. We got all these great strengths we're going to take on to the next place. If you can choose to push back a little bit against that unreliable narrative and not drain your battery on the things that you can do nothing about, I think that you will find that, like Liz said, you're gonna have this strength. Your spine's going to be a little straighter, your head's going to be a little higher and a little clearer, because you are going to be functioning from your position of agency, which is really where your resilience can do the most for you. So use your battery wisely, like Liz. And if you're just going through this and you want somebody that you can talk to, feel free to reach out to Liz, and
yes, absolutely,
as well. So I'm going to put Liz's information up here one more time. Liz, any final thoughts you want to share with people before we close the show?
I think that just, kind of summing it up is that, have your pity party, be mad, be whatever. And then, think about, where do you want to go? Because people ask you. So you might as well start thinking about it. Where do you want to go? What do you want to do? Keep focused on that. And if you feel like you're backtracking, find your garden, whatever it is that is your outlet. Go for a run. Go, of course, I promote going outside because I'm
an outdoor girl too, but pet the cat, pet the dog.
Oh gosh, absolutely. Absolutely. Call somebody and, have that and bring yourself back to center, and just know you'll be okay. Keep reaching out to people that they'll help you get there.
Yeah. And notice these are all things about connecting, relationship with Mother Earth, relationship with others, not with booze or caffeine or those things. That's not going to help you so much. I'm just telling you. Not really going to help you. Coming up this week on Wednesday the 30th, at 5 p.m., so just in time for rush hour, Suze is coming to join us. She's going to also talk about transition. So thematically, transitions are going to be part of the conversation for the week. So come back and join us Wednesday the 30th at 5 p.m. for more on transitions. Liz, thank you for the courage to share your story. I know there are so many people in this situation, and they're going to find this podcast and they're going to learn something valuable from you sharing your journey. And we appreciate you doing that.
Oh, I really appreciate your time and the opportunity to hopefully help somebody else.
And friends, let's help Liz. Like, who can you introduce Liz to? They don't have to be hiring. Just who do you know that's maybe in the world of sales and marketing that would be a good person for her to get to know? If we just help her expand her web, her network of friends, she's going to find that job all the faster. And we get to say that we were a part of it. And that's our good deed for the week.
There you go.
All right, everybody, enjoy the rest of your weekend. Thanks so much for being with us. And I'll see you on Wednesday. Bye, everyone. Thank you for joining us on the story I'm telling myself. If you loved this episode, would you do us a big favor to help us reach a bigger audience? Simply subscribe to the Story I'm Telling Myself podcast and rate this episode and share it with a friend. Thank you for listening.